throw in Na'im Akbar because he's important, I think, in two ways. The first is that he recognizes that a lot of Black people in the West, a lot of our thoughts and behavior are seriously affected by the slave past. And a lot of the outcomes are similar to what Monsieur Fanon talks about once you've been conquered, colonized, and enslaved, where certain aspects of our behavior, such as our attitudes to work, such as our attitudes to property, leadership, playing the clown around Europeans, personal inferiority, family and community divisions, color consciousness, distorted religious imagery, how a lot of that is still present in our behaviors. And this is why so many Black people are on the raccoon train when it comes to politics. But that's part of our behavior, which we can analyze. The other part of our behavior is, as Africans, we do have retentions of ancient culture, because the same Na'im Akbar talks about what he calls the Nile Valley origins of the science of the mind, where the whole idea that the spiritual concepts that make up the Book of the Dead, such as the Ka, the Ba, the Kaibit, the Sa, and so on and so forth, that these different things that are in the Book of the Dead are actually psychological concepts showing that a modern human is made up of what he calls multiple selves. And this idea of a modern human being made up of multiple selves, this same idea was developed by a Nigerian philosopher in this country called Chukwuneri Kamalu, who wrote the book Person, Divinity, and Nature, where he's comparing traditional African cultures, such as the Yoruba, the Igbo, the Dogon, and so on, their ideas of what makes up the multiple selves of a person with the ancient Egyptian concepts of the multiple selves. And so what that means, if we're analyzing Black people today, some of our behavior is going to be raccoon train behavior, because that's what happens to you when you've been conquered, colonized, enslaved, and so on. But some of our behavior is going to be ancestral behavior. Some of our thinking is going to be ancestral, where we are still thinking in some ways, in ways that our ancestors would have been thinking. And then as we become more and more politically conscious, we move slightly away from the raccoon train and slightly more towards becoming Pan-African, Afrocentric, Black nationalist, whatever terms you want to move. And then this going from one to the other is this consciousness. And Fanon explains precisely how we can go from one to the other. You know, he's got a model in his book, The Wretched of the Earth. And what happens when people become conscious and how their thinking changes from Eurocentric thinking to the thinking of their own people. And that's what we should be aiming for in how we teach Black psychology and so on. But let me shut up at this point.
No, that's extremely significant in terms of what you've said, and in terms of Na'im Akbar. Certainly, he's one that has pointed out the understanding of the mind in terms of how ancient that was in terms of civilization, and it is rooted really in Nile Valley civilization. I mentioned Maya, she's also involved in that, and it's a matter of the understanding of the mind. And you brought up the not a concept, shall we, but you brought up consciousness as an entity. Well, consciousness is something that the European has not been able to grasp. You understand that now. As they say, consciousness is a hard problem. But it's a hard problem because they haven't experienced it. Consciousness is something that you experience. It's not something that you can grasp in a physical sense. And this is their problem. They have tried to define consciousness as an epiphenomenon of neuronal activity in the brain. That's as far as them being able to get to it. So, you know, when their psychology, you know, has gone, you know, through all of these changes, shall we say, from Freud in terms of the subconscious and the unconscious, to Jung, and then to behavioral psychology, et cetera, they're still looking for a physical basis for the mind, for consciousness and the mind. And that physical basis does not exist. And it gets back to the basic difference and misunderstanding of Europeans in that they think only of materialism. And their thoughts are based on the physical matter and the information that's brought to them about physical matter through their five senses. They do not have another way to approach nature itself, because nature is bigger than the physical matter. And as a matter of fact, not using a pun or anything, but as a matter of fact, as you know, physical matter is less than 5% of the universe. Most is made up of not matter, if you will. And you can call it anything you want. Nowadays, I think they're calling it the neutron soup or something like that. But or you know, or the universal field, the Akashic field, it was called. But in terms of African terms, it was called the Nun, and which really was sort of the watery source of everything. In terms of origin, and it consisted, you know, of I don't want to get too heavy into that, but it consisted of Amun, which is consciousness itself, and other elements that are basic to creativity and the creation of the universe. But then